Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about the natal chart of Travis Reinking. He has been a recent Waffle House shooter. He has been arrested and apprehended by the police. And anyway, the thing I want to talk about is, first off, now he has the sun in Aquarius in his chart. His birthday, I checked, was February 1st, 1989. I couldn't get a time of birth. Didn't see his natal chart online, and for obvious reasons, I guess because this was very recent. And but I saw his, but I have checked, in most sites that I have checked that had a birth date for him was February 1st, 1989. So anyway, well, first thing off is his sun is in Aquarius, and Aquarius in a very negative manifestation can show exceptionally rebellious, non-conforming energy, sometimes even iconoclastic. I mean, I'm not sure if he was or not. I don't know how religious he actually was, if he was at all, or if he had any denomination or what have you. But anyway, but the thing is, though, also he has moon in Sagittarius. Now, with the moon in Sag, well, the emotional needs may be connected with adventure, exploration, and love of the outdoors. And funny thing is, he was apprehended in a woodsy area, approximately a mile, perhaps, from the scene of the crime. Now, going back to his sun in Aquarius, now it is a focal point of a fixed T-square configuration in his chart that consists of an opposition from Pluto and Scorpio to Mars and Taurus, and the sun. The sun in Aquarius squares both these points. So perhaps this bizarre radical energy really was really that point, and standing out with that energy, that maverick Aquarius-like energy, and perhaps to be unique at any cost, was a little bit of an overcompensation and over-accentuation to deal with the Pluto-Mars opposition. The Pluto-Mars opposition could indicate someone that might be dealing with a lot of crisis and upheavals in their lives that oppose its opposition to perhaps being able to take action in their life, and might conflict with one's actual desires. And also, too, really, the way this could work out, too, I'm looking at it, too, this singleton. The sun in Aquarius is a singleton in his chart, and I think for that reason may have put a lot more emphasis on it. And the fact it's the sun, maybe there's more emphasis and accentuation on a need to shine. Now, in his solar sunrise chart, he has a preponderance of planets on the left side, 9 of 10 to be precise. And this shows that really can indicate a very self-driving, self-reliant individual that doesn't really need a lot of coaxing or cajoling from others to initiate things, starting a lot of things on his own. And having this Aquarius sun and Sagittarius moon, he's just doing probably somebody that just does a lot of things really very independently, and doesn't really want others to intervene and interfere with really many things that he's doing. He just wants to be that free bird, so to speak. And the thing was, too, he had 5 of the major astro energies in cardinal signs. And when I did the solar sunrise chart, he had, I'm including, when I'm talking about the major astro influences, I'm talking about the 10 planets, 10 astrological planets, the MC and the ascendant. Of course, in a solar sunrise chart, the ascendant is going to be at the same position as the sun sign. So anyway, he really, the thing about it is, there was at least one blog on the internet that stated he had some history of some kind of delusions or delusional behavior. He apparently had thought that renowned prolific music singer Taylor Swift had hacked into his phone, and I think there was something about thinking that she may have hacked into his Netflix account or something, if I'm not mistaken. Now, in his solar slash sunrise chart, he does have Neptune conjunct the 12th house cusp of mental illness. This can suggest perhaps a confounding, confusing mental illness, and perhaps something connected with delusions as well. Now, he has other indicators perhaps connected with possible mental illness. He has Mercury not just retrograde, but in his 12th house in the solar sunrise chart. He also has the ruler of the 3rd house, Venus, in the 12th house. 3rd house, rational mind. The ruler of the 3rd house of the rational mind in the 12th house of restrictions and mental illness. And anyway, the next thing up now, he has a yod configuration, albeit a weak one perhaps, where that involves a sextile between Mars in Taurus and Chiron in Cancer. In both those points, astrological energies making it in conjunct to his Sagittarius MC, which of course is the apex point of that configuration, that finger point. Now, sadly, though, I mean, I understand that yods in astrology can sometimes indicate inordinate and prodigious achievement, but I mean, so when you have, you're talking about this sextile, the energy, when you have a yod, really what it basically, how it works and how it manifests, generally speaking, you take the sextile, the energy of that sextile, that is involved in the yod configuration is injected into that apex point of the yod. And I mean, and the person can often may be able to accomplish inordinate achievement if they're able to work through the inconjunct aspects to that apex point made by the astrological energies made with the sextile. So, the thing about this is, where I think the way this may have manifested with him, though, is that maybe given that the Sagittarius MC is the apex point, of course the 10th house is connected with notoriety, status, and recognition. Well, perhaps this gave him some notoriety and recognition for doing something very foolhardy, reckless, and audacious. And you have to understand, I mean, you're taking what really, how this could have worked out with him astrologically is that the Mars and Chiron making the sextile to Chiron in Cancer, well, this could have manifested in that he was able to maybe utilize that sextile with that Mars and Taurus persistent, obstinate, volatile behavior to cause wounds, perhaps in this case literally with the shooting by killing 4 people and injuring a number of other people, and being able to inject that energy into the Sagittarius MC. And unfortunately, this turned out to be perhaps global notoriety for all the the wrong reasons, in a very negative way, of course. So he's able to take that sextile energy, perhaps inject it into the apex point of the yod, unfortunately, and gave him some notoriety for this some foolhardy, reckless, and audacious action. And the thing about it is, Saturn, what I think is interesting too is that transit Saturn actually almost exactly conjoined his natal Saturn in Capricorn at the time of this shooting event. Now, Saturn is also the ruler of his 12th house cusp of imprisonment. Now, Saturn, obviously, he's going through his Saturn return. Saturn returns can often signify significant events and major turning points, and could often set the stage, so to speak, for the next 29 to 30 years. Now, sadly for him, he will likely be behind bars at least 29, 30 years if he doesn't get a life or a death sentence. Now, going back to singleton planets, his moon in Sagittarius is a singleton planet ×2. It is the only mutable planet in his chart, and it's also the only planet in fire. So, and it's also was the most elevated planet in the solar sunrise chart, and being posited in the 10th house could even take on more emphasis and significance in that 10th house of notoriety and recognition. Now, perhaps that, along with his sun in Aquarius, Singleton, this could really show a strong infatuation, perhaps obsession for this public recognition and attention. Remember, the moon is associated with the public, and the sun is about wanting to shine, how one is going to shine, and perhaps he did so with this real kind of bizarre, radical, non-conforming, maybe even rebellious behavior. I mean, this is just, I mean, when he ran out, he either had no clothes on or was barely clad with something. I mean, this is almost like, I don't say eccentric Aquarius energy. This is like real, like almost like Aquarius energy on negative Aquarius energy on steroids, figuratively speaking. So anyway, well, the thing about it is, going back to his 10th house moon in Sagittarius, that could really, I mean, given that it is a singleton times 2, being the only mutable and only fire planet in the chart, this could perhaps over-accentuate and overemphasize the need perhaps for adventure, exploration, foolhardy, reckless behavior, hunting, perhaps, and this could be emotional needs. I mean, he was, I mean, in a way, in his own way, hunting in this particular experience. I don't know if he actually ever did any hunting as far as actual animals, though. But anyway, the thing about this is, and also perhaps that with the Sagittarius MC in the solar sunrise chart, this is being perhaps got known and recognized for some kind of demented and warped philosophies as well. The moon being a singleton can often indicate near perpetual insecurity. In Sagittarius, maybe it had something to do with not being as learned, so to speak, beyond high school compared to others. Now, I don't know if he had, I didn't research if he has any college history or not, but regardless whether he went to college or not, there still might be some insecurities in connection with higher education. So anyway, well, the next thing as far as talking about with him now, continuing a little bit with his with the moon in Sagittarius singleton energy. When the moon is a singleton, this could almost be like that whimsical child that can be averse to growing up, and coupled with having to deal with the Saturn return along with this, could make this even more difficult to grasp, because when you're going through that Saturn return, that first return when you hit about 29 years old, that could be that time, when you're supposed to take on certain maturation and responsibilities. When I went through my Saturn return, if I'm not mistaken, it was fairly close proximity to the time when one of my grandparents had helped me out monetarily for a number of years, and she just told me, said, Eddie, I'm not able to do it anymore, and I have Saturn and Taurus in the 12th house of restrictions, and it also squares my Venus. So you can understand I've had monetary difficulties for a good part of my life, and when this had to happen, I mean, it was kind of like one of those situations where I was forced to work maybe even a little bit more laboriously to try, Saturn Taurus, this laborious work, maybe even in seclusion at times, being the 12, where I had maybe not much choice but to take on that responsibilities and really try to kind of further myself into manhood, so to speak, at that time. Now, at this time for this guy, for Travis Reinking, I mean, he's obviously probably going to either spend the rest of his life incarcerated, or he's going to get the death penalty. I'm not sure how these statutes work, and as far as the Nashville, Tennessee, Davidson County area, and what sentence he could potentially get, but it's obviously going to be lengthy and extensive if it's not death. So anyway, it probably will either be life or death penalty is what my guess would be, considering these were 4 people that he killed, and at least a few injured, strongly injured, I believe, as well. Now, also too, I mean, don't be flabbergasted or be in a state of shock, people, that his Mars is pretty afflicted in his chart. It's also Two, it is in Taurus, in its detriment. It also opposes his Pluto and squares his Sun, and it makes a long inconjunct to his Moon in Sagittarius. So long inconjunct, and really, it makes an inconjunct to the Moon in Sagittarius and a long inconjunct to the MC. Now, interestingly enough, the 10th house ruler of status notoriety, Jupiter in Taurus at 26 degrees, is very close to the fixed star Algol position. Now remember that Jupiter, though very strongly benign and benevolent, as I've stated in previous videos, can be paradoxical though. It can sometimes expand and enlarge things, and sometimes positive, sometimes negative. Now, the Algol, the fact that Jupiter is in Taurus near this Algol position could expand and enlarge Algol behavior, perhaps expanding malevolent, nefarious, and murderous tendencies, and really being a very strong recalcitrant drunk, sorry, and maybe was even involved in I don't really know, but I would not be surprised if he was involved in drinking and even perhaps drugs as well. I guess time will tell when people investigate him more extensively and thoroughly. Now, another thing too, the sad part about him too is that the chart really does show a person that may have been rather very cold, callous, and undemonstrative. Now, he had 5 planets in Capricorn, and he also had just 1 planet in water, which was Pluto in Scorpio, and of course that is a very strong generational planet. And really, perhaps he may have been somebody that might have been almost everything but devoid of compassion and sensitivity to others, sadly. And the thing about this too, as far as transit Mars was in his 12th house at the time of the solar sunrise chart. In his transit Mars was in his 12th house, which of course that could suggest that violence and gunfire can lead to self-undoing and imprisonment. Now, the solar chart that he has 2 planets in the 12th, 2 planets conjunct the 12th from the 11th, and there were 2 planets in transit in the 12th at the time of the shooting, Mars and Pluto. Also, the Black Moon Lilith, transit Black Moon Lilith was at the 12th house as well. And when you have the Black Moon Lilith transit a 12th house, sometimes this could be about an unveiling and revelation of some kind of dark mental illness, or something that was hidden for some time that becomes unveiled. Capricorn could be something that might be rather very depressing, and a mentalist that might have been rather maybe limiting and restricting. So, and causing perhaps much despondency as well, and feeling melancholy. So anyway, well, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for my take on the natal chart of Travis Reinking. And stay tuned next time, where I am going to be talking about the natal chart of James Shaw Jr. He, of course, was the person that intervened in that shooting and likely saved a number of people's lives. So anyway, 2 things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel, but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart, and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.